What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Huddle Up podcast. I got Hayden with me.
Yes,
I'm
sir.
Hudson, of course. Um, this should be our number two episode. We recorded a really good episode number one, and then software kind of messed that whole thing up. Could never even get the video file, which is crazy. So we're making this one a little shorter. Hopefully, we figure out a way to get the episodes a little longer. But we're going to be talking about the NFL and the NBA today. And we're going to start with Monday Night Football. So I was at this game, uh, blessed enough to go. Shout out my boy Nick. Um, Browns Broncos was not supposed to be the game of the year, but you could definitely make the argument that it was, which made it even better being there in person. I know we were talking a little bit during the game and after the game. I know you were watching the game. What were your thoughts? You can give me anything, whether it just be teams, quarterbacks. What do you got?
So I think my strongest takeaway from it, and I think this was what I was alluding to earlier, is I'm not sure how the money would necessarily work, and maybe this is the strong take, but I think the Browns or whichever team is kind of QB ready or QB needy, they need to take like a serious look at Jameis because that was probably when that was. I know he had the two pick sixes, and those weren't necessarily pretty throws, but he like diced up a top five defense in the league like hard. With other than David Njoku, I don't think you can really. I mean, Jerry Judy is a solid player, but he wasn't playing well all year.
He's always been a talent,
Yeah,
but it's not like he was. Yeah, I agree. I mean, the Broncos had moved off the guy, so
yeah, yeah. And so I just think that a team, I don't know which teams would be QB needy. I know the Jets were talking about maybe moving off of Aaron Rodgers or another team that might need like a bridge guy. But one point was made that Geno Smith became a franchise quarterback at like 30 with the Seahawks. And so even though he's maybe not necessarily the best quarterback in the league, I think he's serviceable. And I think Jameis is proven the last 2 weeks with the Steelers game and then with this game that he's still capable of putting up a pretty solid performance. I mean, what was it, 500 yards that he put up with 4 touchdowns?
yeah, 497, four tutties, three picks, I believe, off the top of my head.
Like,
Yeah,
come on, dude. That's and the Jameis Winston experience has always been something that's pretty magical. Uh,
and the guy is like hilarious. Like you
yeah,
gotta love the guy. I love the guy. Like he's probably the only Florida State Seminole that I can like tolerate. Jokes
verse this.
aside. Yeah, true. We'll throw him in the bucket,
All right.
but um, well, he's phenomenal, and he's like he. It's a full experience with him, man. It's unlike anything you're really gonna see in the NFL. Do you remember like the Buck season he had with like 30 tutties and
The,
30
the
picks?
30 for 30 year, that was a
Yeah,
classic.
insane. I think that's, and I love Winston, but the hard part is the turnovers. I mean,
Yeah.
that game, like, and I'm a Bo Nix guy, as you know, and we'll get into him to him a little bit, but like Jameis by far outplayed Bo Nix, no question. But the issue was the two pick sixes. Like, you cannot do that.
Mm-mm.
Like, Bo did throw two picks. I would make the argument at least one, if not both, were not his fault. But
Mm-hmm.
regardless, he those picks were not pick sixes.
Mm-hmm.
They did not necessarily just turn right into points.
Yeah.
And two pick sixes with like what, like 50, 60 return yards on each. I mean,
Yeah.
that's brutal. But I think when I'm thinking about teams that could use a guy like Jameis, um, I start to go through even like the Steelers. Obviously, they have Russ, but that's kind of the build you're looking for. A
Mm-hmm.
pretty set team. They just need kind of a quarterback for a year. They're in win now mode, just without the quarterback. Um, I mean, if Tua were to retire, that would have been a really interesting spot.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, he's not, but one to look at.
Yeah.
Um, what about San Fran? I know we don't like San Fran, but that's kind of an interesting one. They might not want to pay Purdy. They
Yeah.
throw Winston in there. That's definitely an interesting one
Mm-hmm.
to think about as well. But yeah, that game was unreal. I did want to see a little bit more out of Bo, um, in terms of like I love what I saw in terms of him being kind of a gunslinger.
Yeah.
You're not really seeing that out of any of the rookie quarterbacks right now. and for better or worse, right? Like Jaden Daniels has been phenomenal.
Hmm.
You don't have to be a gunslinger to be good. Um, but it's just good to see. It's good to see Sean Payton trusting a lot in Bo Nix. But that being said, it still wasn't his best game. Especially even though it's a good Browns defense, they're not necessarily like a winning team right now. So could have expected a little more at home, but I think the Broncos are going to be a tough out in the playoffs. I think they're really well coached, especially depending on how seeding goes. I guess they pretty much have no shot to get a home playoff game, but they can play in those cold weather games that maybe other teams can't. So
Yeah.
they're definitely interesting when it comes to the playoff picture. I wish they had a really solid, solidified wide receiver to go with Sutton. But it's year one of the Bo Nix, Sean Payton experiment, and it seems to be going well so far. So
Yeah. No, I think he's been pretty impressive this year for them. I mean, you can't really argue that. I mean, you can make an argument that other guys have been more impressive, but I think he's just been the most consistent, and he's gradually gotten better every single week. I mean, even then,
mhm.
this performance was still pretty good. He threw that dot to was it Mims on the nuke?
Yeah,
It
it's
was like,
insane.
oh, that thing was on a
That,
rope.
yeah, like I have not seen like I think Jaden overall has probably been the best rookie to this point. We'll see how the season ends.
Brock Bowers.
Uh, out of the quarterbacks, I should have said Bowers should win offensive rookie of the year, but
Hmm.
whatever. It's a quarterback award. Um, but that throw, I don't think any rookie quarterbacks to this point have made a throw like that.
No.
Just like you said, on a rope, like. And I didn't. I watched every Oregon game last year. I don't think I saw him make a throw like that at Oregon. That was a little bit of a shocker,
Yeah.
but I love to see it.
No, that was pretty good performance, and their defense is still like you said, the playoff stuff. I honestly think that they have a shot depending on who they match up with. Like a team like maybe they face up with the Steelers in the first round, and I
That'd be interesting.
I think if I think the turnovers for Bo are pretty uncharacteristic, and like you said, one of them definitely was on him, and the other one you can make the case for the same thing.
Hmm.
They have a shot at some of these teams, especially. I mean, even if they faced against. I mean, they took Kansas City down to the wire, and it took the Mahomes
They
black
did.
magic on the block kick to take them out. So I wouldn't want to face out of any of the lower seeded AFC teams. That's probably the one that I don't want to see.
As a Texans guy, I would much rather, if I was one of the other teams, I'd rather play the Broncos than the Texans.
Yeah, yeah. Wait,
I'm sorry, other way around. Other way around. I
okay.
would much rather play the Texans right now.
Yeah, yeah,
They're vulnerable. They have no continuity whatsoever.
yeah.
Like it's rough, and the Broncos are playing like a really good style of football. I was concerned a little bit about that defense, but
Mhm.
when you have a guy like Winston just throwing it around,
Yeah. He has
not
nothing to
every defense
lose.
is going to be perfect. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Um, and PS2, I mean, he wasn't matched up on Judy all game, but man, he got kind of fried on Monday.
No, they said I was reading the next gen stats, and he only gave up like I think he lined up against him for maybe like 30 snaps, and he only gave up 3 catches. And it was Levi Wallace who got smoked for majority of the
It
game.
was, yeah, I know it wasn't PS2 on the deep ball, but
Yeah,
you had, I just remember seeing a couple of those like out routes where he just wasn't even like close, and I was
yeah.
like,
They
dang, dude.
they
I don't know what PFF said. I can use my eyes, and I was like,
uh,
it just did not feel like the same PS2. That was definitely a little concerning,
uh,
but
I think the other thing too is their run game. They're trying to feed the hot hand, and McLaughlin had a pretty solid game on the ground. But I think I mean you can ride the hot hand, but I think I'd like for them to find a little bit more consistency versus having Bo throw however many passes he did, and it's still
I
pretty
think it was like
successful.
36.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if you can, I mean 36 is I guess pretty average, but if you can get a pretty consistent run game, and if the defense kind of straps up a little bit harder, I think they're like you're saying they're a team to face, especially in cold weather games.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
no,
would not want to play him in a cold weather game.
uh-uh.
No. I think that was one of the other storylines about the game that was kind of weird.
Hmm.
Javante Williams had like 4 carries for 4 yards.
Yeah, yeah,
I mean, he got the touchdown in I think the first quarter, and then that was it.
yeah,
That was a little weird. And McLaughlin played like phenomenal.
yeah.
He was great, but I mean, no, it's kind of the consistency thing, right? Like what's going on there? That was definitely odd. It worked. I
Yeah.
trust Sean Payton a lot, but
And they have a solid running back room with, I mean, Williams has kind of been like kind of more of a question mark, but McLaughlin's a really good like change of
mhm.
pace guy. And even then, he was still running. He was averaging like 6 to 7 yards a carry. So like that's pretty, pretty solid. I mean,
It was quick.
that's really
He's
good.
a
And then they
yeah.
got Audric, is it Estime?
Estimate, yeah.
Estimate,
Yep.
and he's got a pretty big build. He's got one of those bruiser builds. So I mean, they have like some assortment in the backfield. I think to maybe if you go McLaughlin and Estime like a 1-2 kind of punch, I think that's a pretty solid run game. I don't think Bo is. Did Bo get pressured a lot in the game? I feel like it was.
No, I was gonna say one of the most underrated. I think that Steelers Broncos matchup would be interesting. I know they already played
Mhm.
earlier in the year, but that was with Bo. Like that was like his second or third start
Yeah,
against Mike Tomlin. Like that's a death sentence pretty
yeah.
much. But um, they have a really solid O line. The Broncos do,
hmm
and he was not even against the Browns. It
That,
wasn't there wasn't a lot of pressure.
that left
Like I think
tackle
the
was strapping
secondary did
up
their job
Miles.
for the most part.
Was
It was Miles. What about Miles?
that left tackle had him in a chamber?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
He was. I think he was playing through an injury, but still, I mean,
yeah.
it's Miles Garrett. He was not showing up.
hmm
I kind of want to transition a little bit here. We were kind of talking about playoff implications a little bit, but there's a lot. This NFL season feels very open. Like we still got question marks a little bit about Detroit. Kansas City's really not blowing anybody out. They're kind of close in every game. Um, Philly's in there. Like, who are your top contenders? Who do you think is getting a little overrated? Like, where do you kind of stand on like the top of the playoff picture right now?
Okay, so I like the points that you made, and especially with Detroit, they've suffered. I saw online they have like 11 guys on the defense that are on IR right now,
Yeah,
and that's just like ridiculous. Like they're signing Jamal Adams to play linebacker. I saw he was taking snaps in the line with the linebackers on the Lions, and so I don't know if I'm necessarily as hot on them, but I will say their offense is. I'd I'd probably want to take their offense as the number one off, especially if you're playing through Detroit. If you have to go into Ford Field and try and knock them off their game, I don't really see anybody stopping them. I think you can slow them down, but the Eagles have looked untouchable the last few weeks, especially playing some of the better talent, Commanders, Rams, and then the Ravens this past week. I think they're
I gotta give him credit there, man.
yeah.
I'm gonna let you keep going, but like the Eagles, like they've proven me wrong, and I will like totally own it.
hmm
I'm here. It's crazy. I mean, they look unstoppable right now.
Yeah. Especially on defense too. They got a lot of young guys that are balling out. Carter looks like the second coming of Aaron Donald almost, and it's like holy
Well,
moly.
now he's getting the double teams that Aaron Donald did.
Yeah, yeah.
And if you're not doubling him, he's getting through. So it's the
Mhm.
same, like
And they got some
similar
other guys on the line too that are producing. Bond is having a like an all pro year, and then they got really good secondary with young guys, which I think is kind of the key to keeping the
And I
speed.
think that's the impressive part of Philly is I think the reason I was really skeptical was not the offense. Like
hmm
I don't really like Hurts, but I knew he'd be fine. Like he's still a solid NFL quarterback. He's just kind of middle of the pack in my opinion.
hmm
But like with Saquon and the receivers, like that was gonna work. The issue was for me was the young secondary.
hmm
They have two starting corners right now that are rookies.
Yeah,
Like that's and they're playing well.
yeah.
That we've never seen that work
Mm-mm.
ever.
No,
Um,
they've been holding
and
their
they're
own.
locking down. They're locking down.
Yeah.
I mean, and maybe the front seven deserves more credit, whatever the case may be. But I mean, it's impressive. It doesn't matter how like it's working, and that was kind of the defense's weakness last year was the secondary. They just got eaten alive, and they're here now.
Yeah,
But keep going.
Vic Fangio has been I think he's been their best acquisition in the offseason outside of I mean obviously Saquon's been pretty darn good. I would say
Yeah,
him and Vic have been kind of the top two guys that they brought in just because I mean Vic was there with the Miami guys last year and they kind of put up a stinker with that defense with how much talent they had last year. Now they had some injuries going on, but They look
It
like
just wasn't enough talent. It
yeah,
just, yeah.
he's got a litany of guys to coach up this year, and he's got a lot of weapons on defense that he can use at his
Yeah.
disposal. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I guess the only other team that I really think can put up a punching chance against those two, depending on how everything kind of shakes out, and it's unfortunate because the NFC North is probably the best division in football. They got like three 11-win team, 10-win
Yeah.
team, and a 9-win team. Like holy moly! So I think I think the Packers, Jordan Love. I know a lot of people are kind of mixed on him, but I just think that I think he's got the capabilities, and I think they have like a pretty solid wide receiver core. Their offensive line is year after year always one of the better units in the league, and Josh Jacobs looks like the Josh Jacobs from 2 years ago when he was running for however many,
He,
yeah, like it's just
he looks good right now.
they have a pretty good basis for the team, and I think the defense can get better a little bit maybe. But they still have guys everywhere. McKinney, Alexander, Kenny Clark still running the line. So I like them a lot. I was going to ask you about this. Maybe this is a hot take. In the AFC, I really only see it
I
as
know what you're gonna say. I think.
I want to say that it's a two-team race. I really do, but
Okay.
I've seen year after year what happens whenever people try and put Mahomes second in that conference, and
Yeah.
I just I'm maybe not a big believer in the Bills' weapons outside of James Cook because Kincaid has had a pretty rough year. Knox is there's a reason why Kincaid is starting over Knox, and then they've been missing Coleman for a little bit, and you got like 31-year-old Amari Cooper out there. I don't know if I believe.
He's not doing much either.
Yeah, other than throwing the ball back to their best player on the against the Niners, right?
That was wild. Yeah.
So I don't know what your opinion on that is, but I realistically think I think the Chiefs are gonna once January rolls around, that's a different team, and I think that they have it in their bag, unfortunately.
I think you've said a lot of things that I agree with. Here's the thing about Detroit. I think Detroit deserves to be not head and shoulders, but they deserve to be the favorite right now. But here's what you got to watch out for. And I can't give credit on this take. I heard it from my favorite analyst, Nick Wright, of course. He don't be missing. But this is very true. This is very true. Thursday night is Packers Lions. Now that's at home for the Lions. It's a great setup. They're the favorites, blah, blah, blah. We get that. But if they were to lose that game, the Vikings are quietly still right there, only with 2 losses.
Hmm.
And again, I'm not saying I necessarily predict this, but if the Lions were to lose Thursday night, and it plays out that the Vikings end up winning the division title, and then the Lions are playing outdoors, that I don't know, man. They've got a lot of dome games this year, and
Yeah.
I think that's something to watch out for. I don't think that I'm they're the favorites to win the division. I would still pick them to win the division, but that's a scenario where it changes things in the NFC really fast. Like, I think the Lions are better than Philly,
Uh,
but if they have to go to Philly instead of host Philly,
hmm.
I don't know if I can I don't know
Yeah.
if I can take the Lions in that game at this point, especially with how Philly's playing.
Hmm.
What do you
And
think about that?
I wholeheartedly agree with that, and I think you and I know. I mean, this past, I guess not this past, a while ago, maybe like the 5th or 6th week of the season when the Lions and Vikings played, they went toe to toe, and
Toe to
like
toe.
it was, I think it was a one-score game, and that's Sam Darnold managing their
Lions kicked the game-winning field goal in that game
right. So
to
I
run out the clock. So
I don't think it's especially with divisional games, it's not as big of a gap as people make it out to seem. I know people kind of dig on Sam Darnold, but I think I know this better than anybody. Um, and the 2018 year when the Rams went to the Super Bowl and they got skunked by the Patriots, there was
yep,
one game when Jared Goff played in the cold against the Chicago Bears on, I think it was Sunday Night Football, and the defensive coordinator named Vic Fangio put Jared Goff in a
that's
box.
interesting.
He put
That's
him in a
interesting.
box, and they basically laid out the blueprint for what Belichick and Flores did in the Super Bowl. And so I think that's something to consider. I don't know if I lean Philadelphia or Lions. I definitely do think the Lions get it, and especially if I heard that if the Lions made the Super Bowl, Hutchinson would be a go potentially, which
Yeah, it's
that's
possible.
frightening. If you make the Super Bowl, they get basically their best player back. So that's just something to think about. But I think with the Lions' injuries and it being so close up until this point, I do think there's a situation where the Lions may. I didn't even actually consider that. That's like a really good point. They might. I mean, even then, the Packers only have 3 losses, and so if they take out the Lions this Thursday, it's
That's
that
what I'm,
it gets.
it is that division is still up for grabs.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
it's interesting because like Philly is pretty much taking the driver's seat there, um, and there's no. I mean, we had talked about on the episode that didn't work out. We talked about the Rams a little bit. I wouldn't want to play them in the playoffs, but their chances of getting in the playoffs are just dwindling and dwindling, and I just it's we don't even want to talk about them at this point. So I
yeah.
I think I think I think my favorites out of the NFC are probably going to be Philly, which again is crazy to me, but I just
Are we getting a 2022 rematch with Philly and Kansas City?
it's very on the table.
I
Now here's my AFC hot take.
Okay.
I don't think, and I think you're probably going to heavily disagree, but I think we know the top two, but there is a team that deserves to be in the who is real, a real contender conversation, and that is Pittsburgh, 100%.
Okay. I
I think they're somehow still underrated. That team, they have a home field advantage. They've got a heck of a coach. They've got a great defense. And they've got a quarterback that is not turning the ball over. I'm not saying he's like top five right now.
and he's been
He's
there.
not Mahomes, and he's been there. Like, I, I know what, like, Vegas is trying to sell the Steelers hard right now.
Uh-huh.
I can't do it, man. They keep winning. They keep beating. Russ just threw for like, I know it was the Cincinnati defense, let's be fair,
Mm.
but he just threw for like
This is
300
four.
something and like 400.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
I
so.
mean, he just tore up Cincy. Like, I'm just I'm just saying, like, we cannot throw them away
No.
at all. Like, if they would, so I think as of now, they would be the 3 seed.
Yeah.
And I mean, so they would probably be going on the road, which is, to play the KC or the Buffalo, which, yeah, that doesn't help them 100%. But I just think if they were to sneakily beat one of those teams, like that is scary. I just watch out for Pittsburgh. One of my boys is a big Steelers fan. He's gonna love listening to that, but it's true. It's true. They got a shot. They really do.
We're gonna get the Battle of Pennsylvania in the Super Bowl potentially with
It's possible.
Philly and Pittsburgh. I think we just talked about the Rams and how their chances are probably skunked unless they conduct some Mahomes black magic themselves. But I think they're a team that I'd like to root for because I like Tomlin. I think Mr. Unlimited is he's still got juice and people wrote him off, but he didn't write back. Stealing those words from Gino, and they got like their offensive line is pretty solid. They got the diva wide receiver in Pickens, and Calvin Austin looks like the second coming of Tyler Lockett. And they have Najee and Warren. They got like a solid run game going, and then I don't even need to talk about the defense because I think you and I both know Steel Curtain
Yeah,
is
it's pretty
back there.
self-explanatory.
I
Uh,
I think
TJ Watt. That's it.
yeah, and they get Highsmith back this week. They get another.
Yeah, that's
They
true.
reload.
I think like I look at the rest of the AFC. I think the Chargers, I just don't think they have quite the weapons, even that Pittsburgh does. And I think they're very similar teams.
Yeah.
Well coached,
Hmm.
great defenses. And I would take Herbert over Russ, but like the Chargers got no weapons.
Yeah.
But like the Steelers hosting, like I would love to see them play like Buffalo, or I guess we are getting the KC Steelers match on Christmas. That's going to be very interesting
Cinema.
because that's cinema. And I love betting KC, but there's no way I can for that game. No way.
I want to see how the Chargers fare against Kansas City in Kansas City, just to see how real this is, because they had that game where they almost blew it to Burrow, and then this past week, it only took Kirk Cousins 4 picks for them to win by one score. So like, I still want to see
Yeah.
maybe a little bit more juice out of them, but hypothetically, put like T Higgins as the wide receiver one on that team, and you get Dobbins back healthy.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to see them
They got a
either.
strong future. It's just not this year. It's
Yeah,
just not this year. They finally got Staley out of there.
yeah.
Thank the Lord.
Bring him
Um,
back to L.A. I'll take him. Ship him back to the other locker room.
I don't think you want him back.
I'll
I
have
don't think you.
as a coordinator, I would take Staley back in a heartbeat. He's got that Vic Fangio kind of defense, I think, where
He does.
it's something complex back going on. But I digress.
But yeah, I think just making sure we hit on everything there. I think the if I were to just name real quick the real and the fake, I think NFC it's pretty much. I'm really tempted to throw at least one of the other NFC North teams in there. I kind of want to throw in Green Bay, but it's tough, and I don't want to write off the Vikings either, man. I think they're legit. I really do. But I think for the most part, like that tier one is clear.
Yeah,
It's Lions and it's Philly, um, and I think tier one in the AFC. I'm putting Pittsburgh in that tier one, and I know that's wild, but they just beat everybody. They're just beating teams. It'll be interesting to see how they play on Christmas Day, but tier one's got to be Chiefs, Bills, Steelers in the AFC to me.
I can get behind that, and maybe this is a hot take, but I think you can make the argument that the Steelers are more well-rounded than the Bills. I don't
I
I don't know how.
They both are concerning on the weapon side. I would love the Steelers to like have a really solidified wide receiver too. If Mike Williams somehow like
Turns back the clock.
resurges, then like yeah, the Steelers are probably my favorites to win the bowl.
Yeah,
But I don't know. I, and when you have a guy like Josh Allen, who I've been critical of, but when he's not turning the ball over like this year,
demon,
he's phenomenal. Yeah.
demon.
Yeah. So I hesitate there a little bit, but on the well-rounded side, yeah, I mean, it's a fair argument. You can make the argument.
Hmm. Don't let the Rams sneak in. That's all I'm gonna say.
Hey,
Detroit,
you never know.
don't let them sneak in.
Oh, Detroit would be shook if they had to play LA again.
I
Shook. Let's go to a little bit of NBA real quick.
Okay.
So when we recorded our last episode, I think we were riding the Lakers high, and it was looking pretty good for them. Since that episode that never aired, they have taken a little bit of a plunge. It's not looked great. I think they're 5-5 in their last 10. LeBron last night, I think it was last night or the night before. I think night before looked pretty rough. Like 10 points. He was like 4 for 16 or something like that. Um, where are we at with the Lakers right now? Like, where do you see this season going? Is this LeBron's last year? Like, what do you got?
I they had the chance this offseason, I think, to make some moves to solidify the front court depth next to Anthony Davis, because I don't know if he's necessarily the traditional five that you would want. I think he plays better as the four, and there's like I mean, when they won the bubble ring, right? They had McGee and Dwight Howard, and it's not like those guys are amazing at those stages of their career, but they still had
Yeah.
guys that were able to play those positions, and they had a chance to get Valanciunas in the offseason, or maybe one of these like bigger body centers that can kind of take on the European that plays in Denver, which Lord help us all, that guy is holy moly.
Yeah,
You can't
he's
stop him. You can only pray. At this point, he's like a nuke waiting to happen every night. But I just I saw recently that the usages have kind of flipped from Davis being the number one guy on that 10-4 run to start the year at like 30%, and LeBron was at like 25, and they've switched the numbers, and so now LeBron's higher usage. I think you got to go back to playing through Davis. I know Connect's been kind of cold as of late, and they haven't had Reeves the last couple games, but those are the only four guys that I have confidence in.
yeah.
Um, Vando, we're
So
major
sad, dude.
Vandalorian brothers, but the
So
clock
sad.
is
Fall off.
he's he's so disappointing. Gabe Vincent's disappointing. Um, who else is disappointing on that team? Rui's been terrible this year. Um,
Rui, I don't I want to hesitate a little bit on that. I don't know. I feel like Rui hasn't been great. I don't know if he's been terrible though. Has it really been that bad?
it's been bad, dude. I think he's in the top or in the bottom 10 of layup percentage. He's like a cone on defense, and when he shoots threes and he's not like butt naked wide open, it's a brick. And he only plays well against Memphis, dude. It's like actually a
Yeah,
joke.
that's wild.
But here's the thing with them is that they have this guy that was playing super well in the preseason, that Quincy Olivari, I think is his name.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like, okay, tell me he's worse. Tell me he's worse than Gabe Vincent to my face, with a straight face. I don't think you can. And so it's like, why are you not taking a risk on bringing this guy up? You know, you have Bronny just sitting on the friggin' bench. Respect to Bronny, but like, please give me Quincy Olivari just to see if he can provide a spark. But I don't know if there's necessarily a move that's going to move him from play in to maybe the sixth seed at best. I just think that they're just kind of muddling around and just wasting AD and LeBron's years. What about you?
Yeah, it's frustrating. It's almost like the Cowboys. It's like you're not really all in. You can't say you're all in and then like not do anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's just like it's just dumb. I think, and I don't think anyone had these super high expectations for the Lakers, but it's just when you have LeBron on your team, like you want to try, at least try and put out the effort. Like we've seen this year, this is at least over the last week, we'll see. LeBron's had a long career. We've seen some slumps.
yeah,
But to this point, as of late, it's kind of seemed like this might be the final, like we might have seen the best days of old LeBron, if that makes sense. Obviously, we haven't seen prime LeBron since like 2018, but like he's looking washed right now. He's looking pretty washed right now. And so now you're stuck with a team that doesn't really have any. I mean, like Reeves is good, whatever, but like young pieces to build around, not really feeling that. There's some young pieces, but building around those guys, no. And so there's just not really a lot to like, I don't know, be excited for.
yeah,
Like you're more like I root for the Lakers because of LeBron, but you're more of like the Lakers guy, and I'm sure it's just like, well, what are we doing, you know?
yeah,
Um, I think Connect is gonna figure it out, and I trust Reddick also to like figure this out. I do think we're gonna hopefully at least see a switch back to AD usage because that is a concerning stat that you were given about the usage rates. Like LeBron should not have an insane usage rate in year like 22
you're
or whatever.
45, bro.
Like it's just that's also just you're not going to win that way. You're just not going to do anything. Like you're not helping LeBron, you're not helping your team. Like you're just like you gotta get the offense through AD and kind of get LeBron in spurts to be the high usage guy. Like maybe end of the first quarter, AD goes out for a bit and you kind of let LeBron go to work just for like that 2-3 minutes, right? Do that again and at some point in the third quarter, whatever the case might be. Like I think that's kind of the model that they should follow. Guys that they should maybe trade for. Oh gosh, I don't even like they just have so many holes right now. They need like another big. They need I mean the classic, they need better shooting. Like I think that's still relevant. Um I mean De'Aaron Fox, we were talking about that before. Like if they really want to make a splash, like I don't know, I guess. If you want to take the ball out of LeBron's hands a little more. But it feels like it's a no hope thing right now. Even with how they started the year, like until they really get some momentum back, it's a no hope situation. I feel
Yeah,
like.
yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. They were talking about moving Gabe Vincent in a couple seconds for Valanciunas, but it's like,
But
okay,
who why would the Wizards take that
I
trade?
I guess just like
for the draft picks.
for the second rounders and the cap relief of Valanciunas. But here's the thing, dude. They had the opportunity to sign him in the offseason, and LeBron said he'd take a pay cut to sign a
I think
big.
it's so dumb. It's so dumb.
I hate Pelinka, bro. I Pelinka is worse than any GM I've possibly ever seen in my life because he signs these guys to these contracts, and it's like, okay, like I think most fans buy into them being decent, but it's like, no, they're like Gabe Vincent, you're a bum. Unfortunately, I'm sorry, you're a bum, dude. Like you're getting
You got to
Cam
add
Reddish.
him now. Add him in the comments. Let's
Like
go.
it's just like terrible, and there's no saving this season, I don't think. But if they wanted to go for the Hail Mary, we talked about it. I maybe this is overpaying for somebody of this caliber,
Okay.
but I think if you were able to somehow get Ingram on the team,
Yeah.
and you'd have to give up at least the first. You're probably going to have to give up Reeves. I don't know if they necessarily take him on because they have McCullum and
I'd be
DeJounte.
fine with them doing that if they didn't give up like if that helped with giving up considerably less draft compensation, I'd be okay with that.
Yeah, maybe like Reeves a first and Max Christie. I don't know if that's. I mean,
Even
that's
that feels like a lot.
it seems like a lot, but also, I mean, Brandon Ingram's like the second best mid range player in the league this year, behind the mid range god DeMar DeRozan, and so
But do they need mid range?
they
Do you think
need
they do?
they need realistically, you and I,
Anything?
they need everything, bro. They need everything. And the thing too is that, right? They were rumored with Trey Young all the last 2 years, and it's like,
I don't
well,
know.
the Hawks are better than them now.
I know.
Like
That's crazy.
like you missed your window, and then a guy like Levine, like you could have had him last year, could have had him the year before. He says he wants to play with LeBron, and now he's having a career year. Like you're not going to get Levine anymore for what you could have got him for. So it's just like you just wasted 6 years of LeBron, 7 years of LeBron.
I've learned a lot of these. I feel like a lot of these players that we hear in the offseason, it's just like rumors to spark interest because like nothing ever comes out of it. Levine has been talked about. DeRozan has been talked about. Trey Young's been talked about. Now we're getting some BI rumors. Like until something actually happens,
Yeah,
it's just like who can we dream up to team with LeBron? And then but I don't know. I think if we can see, I could see them making a move if they get back on track. If they can go like get like a 8-2 over the last 10 kind of spurt and really like get some momentum and get because LeBron had like don't get me wrong, LeBron has not been good. A part of it is on him, straight up. And they got to get the ball to AD more. They got to figure it out. But if they can, then I could see him making a move. I just don't see them doing that out of like desperation at this point. Like why? I think they're like the 9 seed right now. Like
yeah.
it's not worth it enough.
I think at this point, I mean, after this year, depending on how everything shakes out, just go just ship LeBron off to wherever he wants to go. Let him go do his thing, and maybe put like as a thank you because we're just wasting his career, and so maybe you get some guys back that you can turn into like some help around AD, and then you can get like a BI kind of guy to be the number two to AD. But at this point, I think after this year, just chalk it up as a loss and just
Yeah.
yeah.
I'd be shocked. I've had hope with the Lakers before, like come playoff time, just to like make things at least competitive and it just there's no spark of that yet that tells us it can happen. There's been no indication of like I feel like even like a lot of the teams in the West have like been kind of inconsistent to this point, but you see kind of the spark and you're like, okay, like they're gonna get that back, right?
Mhm.
Like the Nuggets are the 8 seed right now, but like
Oh
you kind of know they're gonna get that, they're gonna come back.
yeah,
You're not worried. They've battled injury, like even last night against the Warriors, great comeback win. Like they're still there, you know. The Lakers, there's no reason to believe that right now, absolutely none.
yeah.
Um, so last topic, we'll go back to NFL. Um, this is where I don't think. I mean, I kind of told you where I stand, and you kind of told me, but no arguments yet. NFL MVP. You can go first.
Okay. So as a Rams fan, I've been robbed of seeing Cooper Kupp win league MVP. I've seen I've seen Todd Gurley get robbed of winning league MVP, and dare I say, in the year Donald had 20 and a half sacks, I feel like he got maybe a little bit slighted, and so maybe this is the
Yeah,
bias.
I was never gonna. I mean, I'm a Texan. I've seen JJ do some crazy things.
But
It was never gonna happen.
even then, it's just like it's a quarterback award, and
Yeah.
the thing with most valuable player, right? If you want to take it down to its core, I think it's if you remove the player from the team, how do they look? Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and and
100%.
and you can fill it in with the backup to whomever at quarterback, or in this case, I know you have an argument for a specific running back here, but it's like me. If you take Josh Allen off of the Bills, dude, that team. I mean, I don't even know who is it. Trubisky that's the backup.
Yeah.
Like, holy moly, that team is maybe sniffing 4 wins in the year, and that's being like maybe five, maybe four is a little bit hasty, but they're not making the playoffs. They're worse than the Dolphins in that division. You know, you can make the argument that the Patriots could put up a shot against those Bills if they were led by Trubisky. And so maybe I have a flawed way of thinking about it, but I think if you take the player and you were to remove them off the team and insert whomever it is behind them, hypothetically, I think that's the clear person, in my opinion, just because, I mean, you and I
Sure.
have had, I think, similar Josh Allen takes where he's just kind of been like a nuke launcher and like a turnover machine in like kind of near at certain points of his
He's
career.
fixed it. He's fixed it to this point.
And he's fixed it. And he's having, I would say, probably a top 2 season of his career, if not the best, because he doesn't have Diggs. They lost 6 captains this offseason. Like he loses all the help on defense, and they're still winning. And I get, it's a team sport and everything, but I just think with Josh Allen, that's my pick, and I know he's the favorite, so I guess that's not really a hot take, but I know you have a different opinion, so I kind of want to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, I feel pretty strongly about it because I agree. We're kind of in a quarterback award era. I don't love it, but it is what it is. But we're giving. I'll just pull this up really quick because I have my computer right here, so I can kind of reference this. Josh Allen this year, don't get me wrong, he's having a great year. I'm not taking anything away from him. I've been very impressed. I've never put the Bills in like tier one contender to this point.
Yeah.
Until like this season because of Josh Allen's turnovers. Like he's playing phenomenal. But you read the stats and you're like, okay, he's 14th in passing yards. He's 6th in passing touchdowns. Like I know he's got the rushing thing going on. Don't get me wrong, but like, come on. Like it's not MVP worthy. Even though he's an MVP worthy talent, the production is not quite there. I kind of have a similar take with the Heisman. I know we're not talking about that, but like I think you got to have the stats to kind of go with it, and because like Saquon right now is scary. He's got. I'm just gonna read it real quick because he's got 1,500 rushing yards, 13 rushing tutties, and then you got the receiving side as well. So he's at pretty much a little over 17 and a half, total yards. And we're through what?
13?
12 games.
Oh, shoot.
He's got 5 more games. Like he's breaking I think he's going to break 2K.
Oh, yeah.
And like, I hear your replacement argument also 100%. I think it's not flawed. I just think it's a little unfair from the quarterback spot because then you're making it a quarterback award again,
That's
right?
fair.
Because quarterbacks are the most valuable position in all of sports, without a doubt. I don't think I'm missing anything. Like that's just
No, that's
they touch the ball every single play, no matter what.
Mhm.
If it's not even going to them, they're touching the ball, and so it's just a little unfair. I do think the Bills, because of the stats will back it up. Again, not taking anything away from Josh Allen. I just think they would still be a successful team without him. That defense is fine. You watch that snow game against San Fran the other night. He had the phenomenal play, he threw the pass and ended up catching it from Amari, which is wild. Like, but I mean, you take that away and you're like, okay, it wasn't like a Josh Allen game. It was like Cook was phenomenal. The defense was flying around. Like, it's just Bills football.
Yeah.
And like, if you take Saquon off the Eagles, I do think they look tremendously different because it's not like Hurts is just dicing everybody right now. He's having a good year also. I'm not taking anything away from him, but it's not like you take Saquon off and I mean, you watch the Rams game, dude. Like, and I know I don't want to bring that up, man, but shoot, dude, like Saquon, just cutting back and forth, going through gaps in the defense. It's like you can just see it's different.
Yeah.
You can clearly see how different it is with Saquon to me. And so I think if you had a quarterback that was like, the stereotypical, like not 50 touchdowns, but like we've seen like the 40 touchdown seasons, right? Like 40 touchdowns, 4,500 yards, whatever. Like, but we're not seeing that to this point with the quarterbacks. So I'm just not comfortable saying Josh Allen is the MVP, even though he's having his best year. He's just I can't do it. Saquon's phenomenal. He's gonna hit 2K. He's gonna have 20 touchdowns, and I think that's my pick. What do you think about that?
I agree, and I definitely think there's probably some negative bias with my Todd Gurley days and him getting snubbed by Brady and Cooper Kupp getting snubbed by I think it was Mahomes or Rodgers that year.
What? So the Triple Crown is that 21?
21. I think that was Rodgers.
So that would have been Rodgers. Rodgers. Yeah.
And so that's the thing is that I do think it unfortunately is a quarterback award. And so not to disqualify Saquon, but I think that's like a knock in the voters' eyes. But I guess to go against that argument, I mean, the one thing is that Philadelphia easily has, I mean, I've never seen an offensive line that can replace Jason Kelsey and
that's impressive.
I think they replaced one of the guards too because they have Becton now, and they're playing like it's like a wall, like it's legitimately like a wall of like 1,500 pounds, and it's so disgusting because I like that's the best offensive line in the league, hands down, in my opinion.
Oh, for sure. They're the boa constrictor. I think I gave that analogy to you the other day.
At the game
called Michigan. Last year in college football, like they're the boa constrictor to the NFL. You can't play with their front and their run game over 4 quarters.
No,
at this point.
But
you just like in the fourth, Saquon is, just gone off every game. It's insane.
Yeah.
I want to remind you of something really quick, and then I'm giving the floor back to you. In that 2021 year, Rodgers he was 37-4 with 4,150 yards.
Yeah. No, I agree. That's a good year. That's a really good year. But the thing is that people were hyping him off of the touchdown to interception ratio. But Kupp won the Triple Crown, and it's like, okay, like if we do like that, like I guess the MVP argument, like take Cooper Kupp off that team. They lost Robert Woods midway.
Yeah.
Odell Beckham would probably have gotten hurt like he did in the Super Bowl earlier in the year. And I love Stafford, you love Stafford, but they were not doing what they were doing without Cooper Kupp that year. Like they would still probably make the playoffs, and they'd still, maybe make it past the first round. But they're not beating the Bucs with that nuke at the end of the game. And he had 2 catches, I think, on that last 40-second drive.
Such a great play,
right?
By the way.
And then
that was insane.
In the Niners game in the conference championship, when he busted a 3rd and 3 on a slant from the slot. And he got up and was screaming. It's like they don't have that. And so I think my other thing is that last year, and I know Philly was like a dumpster fire from like December onwards, but they had DeAndre Swift, who I think is absolutely mid, like just the most mid running back. Like every mid part of a running back is stashed into DeAndre Swift. And he still ran for, I think he was the top 5 in rushing categories. And so it's like they make the offensive line and the factor of Jalen Hurts, I think, definitely helps with his legs. And so I do think Saquon's easily the best running back in the league this year. But in my mind, I go, I think the situation has been like there's no better situation to run the ball in. And then you take a guy like Derrick Henry, for example. I think he's second in
Yeah.
rushing yards, and he's fighting father time right now. And even then, he still looks like um,
I mean, he looks
a
good.
man amongst boys. And it's like if you take Derrick Henry off the Ravens, and you got Justice Hill running the ball back there with just Lamar throwing to suspended Deontay Johnson and Mark Andrews. You
Yeah,
know,
how about that trade? I mean, I know we were not going to go down that, but that just did not work
yeah, that
for
that was
whatever reason.
that was terrible, dude. But like,
Um,
I think that I I understand the argument, but then at the same time with the stats, like I think the Ravens went 13-4 last year, and Lamar was like 27-4. He threw for like just under 4,000 yards. Hypothetically, Dak should have won it last year because he just had flat out better numbers. And I hate Dak, and I know that you're probably close to similar. I think Dak is
yeah,
not amazing, but if it's based on stats, there just hasn't been the consistency, at least in that regard. Like Dak should have won it last year if it was based on stats. Because then if you go to the MVP argument about like most valuable player, I mean that's just kind of my take on it. I do think Saquon will probably make it pretty close with Josh Allen,
yeah.
but like even then, like I guess that's still the unfair argument. But like take Lamar out of Baltimore, like geez Louise, I don't know what that team even begins to look like.
I think there's more. This could be okay. I gotta phrase this carefully because here's the weird thing: is we have two phenomenal QB seasons right now that we can't give the award to. Burrow and because Burrow's like that was my preseason
Jameis,
pick. Burrow, dude, Burrow should be in there,
I
and he can't be because the team's not winning, and so I'm not gonna make that argument. But the stats wise, he's been like playing out of his mind, and
yeah
so is Lamar. It's just both teams have kind of had big ups and downs, and
yeah.
so that like I would make the argument if you're just talking about the player, like Lamar and Burrow would probably be above Josh Allen at this point.
Yeah,
But
I can get behind that.
I mean you can't. I mean they're not winning.
Yeah.
Like not winning to that level. To the level of both Josh Allen and Saquon.
And that's what's so dumb. It's like, okay, well, this is the thing with the award is that it's a quarterback award and it's been one since like '06 or '09, I think, when Peterson won it.
Yeah, I think that sounds about right for AP and we never had a wide receiver
I think
since then.
Ladanian won it a couple years
Yeah,
before
Danian would have been
'06.
'07.
Oh, okay.
'07, I believe.
So it's like there hasn't been a running back or any other position besides quarterback to win it. And so it's like, okay, if I had to work with that frame of mind, like Saquon's got to have to break the Eric Dickerson record, and then
Which he might.
and he
Which he
probably
might.
will. He probably fucking will, dude. Like it's bad, and so it's just why it's like I understand the Saquon argument, but the fact that they gave it to Lamar last year for just being on the best team, even though I mean, I'm a Lamar guy, but I don't know if he necessarily deserved it more than Dak based on stats and just, I mean, I guess the value of it. But the issue I have is that like take Burrow off the Bengals, dude, they are not winning a game this year.
If you take Burrow off the Bengals?
Yeah, if you take
Yeah,
Burrow
yeah,
off the
yeah.
Bengals, they're 0-12.
Yeah,
They might
for
be
sure.
they might be negative
For
one and
sure.
12 with how bad that defense has been, and he's carried them through every single game.
It's really frustrating as a guy who picked Burrow because I'm like, this dude is going off. Like that was the pick.
Yeah,
On paper, it was the right pick, and that defense could not cover me if I was like wide receiver, dude. That's a violation, but you know what? It's
but see, here's the
they
thing.
can't cover anybody.
I agree, but here's you and I behind that Eagles offensive line, we might average 3 yards a carry because the push that they get,
Yeah,
they
I don't know.
push def. I saw it firsthand, and I'm so embarrassed that I was at that game as a Rams fan because Verse got smoked, Fisk got smoked, Turner, Young, Hoyt, it
It
was
was just,
toddlers against
but
grown
they
men.
looked good early. It was just the boa constrictor thing was like it just yeah, there was no hope
Like
really.
it's like I wish the MVP award could be given to a positional group because it's easily the Eagles' offensive line. Because if you get rid of Mailata and Lane Johnson and replace them with average tackles, I don't think Mekhi Becton looks as good. I don't think that they're going to be like Juergens. I don't think he holds up as well as a center. Like, I think that those two guys are legitimately like. I think that they're instrumental to that offense because they give Hurts time to find Brown down the field or Devontae Smith, and then obviously Saquon. I mean, I know Saquon was generational coming out of college and he had great years with the Giants, but like this is like he's dropping a nuke this year. Like he's going on a 30-kill streak, and
I don't know how. It's still crazy the Giants let him go. I mean,
and pay your running backs.
If anything we've learned, even with like Joe Mixon, like
Josh Jacobs,
without Joe Mixon, the Texans might have one win this year.
Bro, Joe Mixon looks like prime Adrian Peterson out there just running folks over.
It's crazy. It's crazy. You look at Jacobs as well, like you said, like he's been, I mean,
monster.
Yeah.
And then King Henry, holy moly! I did not think he had that left in the tank.
Yeah. I mean, you have him and Lamar, and like
that's wicked.
Scary. Yeah. I mean, there would be more of an argument for him too if the Ravens were a little better. But they also, I mean, at some point we gotta cut it off. But like, gosh, there's been a couple games where they just don't feed Derrick Henry, and you're like, what's going on? The Eagles get the ball to Saquon, pretty much no matter what at this point. So, you got anything else to add real quick?
I guess with that is, unless the Ravens are planning, because we all saw what happened in the AFC Championship game when they tried to make Lamar turn into Tom Brady. If I don't see King Henry get 25 touches in the playoffs, I'm gonna get heinous, bro.
I will. That'll be the first time I'll listen to NFL's rigged arguments.
Like there's no
unless they get 10 and he has like 20 yards and whatever. Okay.
Yeah.
Boxed, I get it. But the Ravens in the playoffs have like gone away from Lamar, and it's like, gone to Lamar instead of relying on what makes them great.
Yeah.
And it's like, holy cow. Like Lamar can pass the ball. I don't think if you're a true ball knower, Lamar can pass the ball. He's a heck of a passer. Better than
that Chargers throw.
It's not his best attribute, but like he's a top 15 passer.
You and I texted each other about that Chargers dot. That was
a laser.
Yeah.
Like there's 5 quarterbacks that can make that throw.
And maybe 2 of them that can make it on the run.
Yeah. So he's phenomenal. We all know he can pass it, but how you win games in January is running the ball. Hand off.
Fucking ball, dude.
I think that'll be it. Episode 1. We appreciate you guys listening if you made it this far. Huddle Up Podcast with Hayden and Hudson. That was a good one.
Yes, sir.
Let us know down below, things like feedback. This is going to be the first one live, so would appreciate feedback you guys have. If you guys have topic suggestions, let us know. And if you want to argue, let me know. I can argue all day.
Yep.
So, appreciate you guys. And hopefully we'll get another one out next week. So,
all right.
Peace. That was pretty good.